Welcome. So glad to have you here with me. It is day 19 of 21 Days Live. Man, this has been some kind of trip. I'm so glad to have you with me, and thank you for joining me on day 19, where I'm going to answer the question, am I the weird one? And this comes up actually like quite a lot for me. I think about it a lot, and I've never really talked about it out loud as a grand thing. But I realize the more I talk to people about their careers, that when people start getting willing to get vulnerable and start getting willing to tell me stuff, they think that the thing that they tell me is going to make me go like, oh, you do what? You think what? You need what? And like freak out. And that's what I'm going to talk about tonight. Because we've got Jonathan with us. Good evening, Jonathan. We've got Catherine. I'm autistic. Of course I am. Catherine, I am not autistic. I am all weird. And the weird that I'm talking about tonight is not the weird that we get called as a mean kind of thing. The weird I'm talking about tonight is the stuff that we think is weird about us. That's like not weird. So I want to start by talking about why we think we're weird, right? I think that we think we're weird. Chris says, oh, good. I have no shame, so I can relate. Excellent. Welcome, weird friends. We think we're weird because there's so much stuff that we don't talk about out loud. And if we think everybody else has their act together and nobody else needs stuff, then we think our needing stuff is going to seem strange. It's going to seem unreasonable. It's going to seem like, well, why can't you just handle that yourself? And so we hold back. And even in a world where we are talking more about neurodivergence, about physical disability, about just general needs and general accommodations for whatever, for leave, for accommodations, getting your work done, for help, for support, we get really scared because we think, one, people are going to think we're weird. Two, they're going to deny the thing. And three, then they're going to think we can't do the job because we asked for the thing that got denied. And now we must not be good enough to do the job. And so we try our best not to tell anybody that we think we're weird. And throughout my career, so now I'm an executive leadership coach, and I've done coaching for actually most of my career, but it's just become a full-time business in the last year. But before that, I spent 20 years in HR. And in HR, the things you hear are sort of the off the beaten path stuff, right? You hear the stuff that you don't hear the gossip. You don't hear who's dating who. You kind of end up knowing anyway. I once worked with a couple who didn't tell anyone they were a couple, but I had seen them out holding hands and kissing. I didn't say anything. It wasn't my business. They weren't doing anything to damage the business. So, they thought it was weird that they were dating. They ended up getting married and they didn't tell anybody. And I knew that bit, but I didn't know the like juicy gossip, that people share around the office, most of which isn't true. But I also heard as an HR person, the stuff that people thought was really scary to share. Stuff like, I can't travel because I have medical equipment at home that can't travel with me. Okay, thanks for telling me. See what we can accommodate. Things like, I have crippling anxiety getting in front of a group of people. Please don't make me do that. Okay. If you didn't take a job that required public speaking, then We'll find somebody else to announce the speakers at our conference. Catherine says, I was talking about my membership to BTS Army. I get the side eye for my love of K-pop. You know, it's funny. I had never really heard, I'd heard of BTS, but I'd never really heard a BTS song. And I was on a Zoom meeting the other night and there was a song playing and everybody was like kind of dancey while we were waiting to get started. And I Shazammed it because I'd never heard it before. And it turns out it was BTS. So I might be getting on board on the BTS train. But we keep all of this stuff inside because we don't want to make a fuss. We don't want to get in trouble for having some sort of oddity, something we think is odd about ourselves. And we think everybody else has it together. So we're going to be the odd person out if we're the ones who have the thing. A physical need, a mental health need, a neurodivergent need, anything like that. And I just want to put a disclaimer out there that what I'm talking about tonight is not going to solve all of your problems. What I hope to get you to tonight is recognizing that we all have stuff. We all have things that we need that we're afraid to ask for, or things that we need that we used to be afraid to ask for, and now we're brave and we ask for them. And sometimes that doesn't get us the job because somebody says, well, I can't accommodate that. Or we ask for something and we do get punished for it, but we're glad we asked anyway. So I'm not here to solve all the problems of the world. I wish I could. Oh, what a dream that would be. What I am here to tell you about is some of the things that I hear and I see and I experience myself that makes it so that you feel like you're in a community of weird. You're not the only one who's weird. And my version of weird and of what we all think makes us weird ranges from like things we think about while we're in meetings to very serious medical health, neurodivergent needs, and everything in between. So I'm generalizing everything with an intent towards kindness and empathy. And I may not get it right. And I just want to put it out there that my intention is really good. My intention is to make you feel included and to make you feel supported, not to make you feel weird. I'm here because I have felt weird. And I have talked to hundreds of employees over the years and tons of clients of mine over the years who feel like the thing they have, the thing they're worried about is weird. And so that's my intention tonight, is to really talk to you about we're all weird. Okay. Linda says the little girl in me gets younger as I get older. Oh, that's interesting. Our inner child speaks louder and more freely, maybe, as we get older. So I told a story the other night about going to my first corporate dinner in an organization where the CEO was like this big deal. His office was behind his assistant's office, which was behind her assistant's office. And this was like a small 35-person organization. There was no reason for him to be that sort of protected and hidden away. But because that was my baseline for hierarchy, I just sort of felt small and I felt weird. And I felt like I was nervous about what I might say to him if I ran into him in the hallway. I was nervous about what happened if I was in a meeting with him. I was nervous about this group lunch that we went to, where I ended up with a chicken bone in my mouth that I didn't know what to do with. And I was too afraid to go to the bathroom. So that made me feel weird. And I took that chicken bone all the way back to the office with me before I spit it out. So I have worked with people over the years who have needed stuff and have been so hesitant to come talk to me. Partly because I was HR and like just the nature of HR, I think is a little bit scary. I mean, I can't imagine how I'm scary, but I am. It is, the job is. And we couldn't always accommodate everything. And so but we tried. I tried. And so people were just generally nervous and just are generally nervous to ask for something that's not in line with the ordinary stuff. And I thought it for myself too, that I shouldn't ask for anything extra, any extra help. I shouldn't speak up in a meeting unless I'm absolutely 100% sure that my area of expertise is being called upon. I was nervous to have ideas that were different than anybody else's. And one day I'm in a meeting with a lot of really important people. And I realized that we're all the same. We're all the same because we're all human. And I'm sitting in this room full of people and trying to get myself more comfortable with them because I'm feeling small and I'm feeling like I was invited into this meeting so I could see what the grownups were doing. That was sort of the feeling that I don't think my manager made me feel that way. I think that was like my nature, was to think like, you know, a little bit of imposter syndrome of like, who am I to be invited into this room? And I'm looking around, and this is in another company where the CEO was accessible and was you know, in things, had all staff meetings, was, you know, tried to be really inclusive. And I'm in this meeting room with vice presidents, senior vice presidents, and I'm an HR business partner at this point. And the CEO is talking and asks me a question. And in an instant, I realized she wasn't asking me the question to test me. Nobody has time for that. She wasn't asking me the question to see if I belonged in the room. I was the subject matter expert. Little old me, I was the subject matter expert. And I realized at that point, everybody's got something to offer. Everybody has something that they're the expert in. No matter what level you're at, you have a job and you're the expert in something. And so I answered the question and got some nods, and, you know, we moved on. And then I thought, like, why am I so nervous about this group of people? And I thought about the old advice that, like, you know, imagine everybody in their underwear if you're talking to a group of people, which I always thought was sort of weird. And like, I don't really want to see everybody in their underwear. I don't want them to see me in my underwear either. And it occurred to me that, like, at our core, no matter what we've gotten, no matter what we've developed, there is a sameness to us, that we are all making it up as we go along. Now, Jean says, so true. Yeah, absolutely. We're all making it up as we go along. We have collected experiences over the years that make it so that we guess better. We get better and better at guessing as we get more and more experienced. But we all sit in a room together. And when my clients tell me that they're nervous to talk in a meeting, I remind them that, like, everybody gets an upset stomach sometimes. And I'm not going to get gross about this because I don't like gross, but I'm going to bet you've had this moment, this feeling. You've been sitting in a room, in a meeting, in a one-on-one, on a Zoom call, in an auditorium full of people, and you get an upset stomach. And you don't know what's going to happen. And it may be terrible. And so you do some deep breathing, try to think about happy thoughts. You try to think about control. You think about your escape plan. You think about when you might be able to get up, leave the room, get to the restroom, handle what you need to handle. Everybody in that room, whether you're with one other person, 10 other people, or in a concert hall filled with thousands, everybody has had that scare at some point. And everybody has thought, it's going to be so embarrassing when I vomit on the table. Everybody has thought, I don't know if I'm going to make it out of here and to the bathroom. I'm not sure what to do next, right? So that brings us to this, like, primitive level of sameness, okay? And then anything else that we do just sort of doesn't feel as weird. And it's like a weird thing to acknowledge. And it's like a weird thing to think about that your CEO has had an upset stomach. But it brings us all to that same level. It's kind of like the, we all put our pants on one leg at a time kind of thing. I don't, I put them on both legs at a time because, I'm a little bit higher level, but you'll learn. Kidding. So then if you bring down to this like primitive level that we are all the same, we are all human beings with human emotions and human physical feelings and things happening inside our bodies, minds, and hearts all the time, then you can't be that weird. And so when you need accommodations for whatever reason, you are only doing a disservice to yourself if you don't ask. Because you're struggling through, you're living through, you're dealing with, you're not thriving. You're not being set up to thrive. Now, this is where it gets tricky, right? And this is where I had that disclaimer at the beginning that my intention is kindness and empathy and really opening up this conversation. What I don't know is how your employer will react. And what I do know is I have worked for employers where I have had to step in and say, we will make this accommodation. We will not force this person to do X, Y, and Z. We will get this person the special chair that their doctor wrote a note for. We will get this person the special headset that allows them to hear because they're hard of hearing. I have had those conversations. Chris says, I'm here for the weird. Thank you, Chris. Welcome. Be weird with us. And so that's like, I was in the room and I'm an advocate and an ally for all needs and all kinds of things and all kinds of people. And not every company has that. Not every company has that understanding. So as I'm giving you advice tonight, and as I'm talking to you about what you can do and how to ask, there may be consequences to you asking. You may get a no. You may have that fear answered that you ask for an accommodation, they say no, and then they always have it on their mind that you have this thing that's preventing you from doing your job well. And I have seen that backfire. And so I'm here to advocate for you, but I don't work in your companies. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I think about how to stand for yourself and how to ask for what you need and what to be prepared for when you ask for what you need. And if you've had positive or negative experience asking for what you need, asking for the accommodations that you need, I'd love to hear in the comments because, as you know, I love for this to be a conversation. I also know that it's like kind of sensitive stuff. So if you don't feel comfortable putting it in the comments, that's okay too. So when you think about what you need and you think about your job, I want you to really think about the essential functions of the job. Catherine says, I don't want to work at a company that won't give me what I need. Catherine, I totally agree with you. And I also wouldn't want to work for a company that wouldn't give me what I needed. And that's why this conversation is so important, because we generally are afraid to ask for what we need. And we're afraid that we won't get the job or we won't get to keep the job. And that's the risk that we have to decide if we're willing to take or not. So when you look at the functions of a job, when you look at the essential functions of a job, you're going to see things that really are essential functions, right? Like I've used this example before, if you're a bank teller inside of a bank and you deal with customers face to face and you're asking for an accommodation to work from home for whatever reason, whether it's because you prefer it or whether it's because you need it, the company is within their rights to say we cannot accommodate that because you are a customer facing person. Now, can they look at other positions for you? Maybe. Are there other things you're qualified for? And do they have jobs open? Maybe. But requesting and getting an accommodation has to make sense for the company and it has to make sense for you. The Department of Labor calls it undue hardship. So if your request for accommodation puts an undue hardship on the company, they don't have to accommodate it. If it doesn't put an undue hardship on the company, then they are supposed to. And then there's all kinds of gray area in between. What does it cost? How much does it inconvenience other people? Is it going to interfere with the essential functions of your job? Is it going to cause some sort of an unreasonable change or shift to how things get done? And that's the reasonability factor is real muddy. What is not okay is like if you ask for a special chair because you have back neck issues, whatever your issues are, and the chair's, a couple $100, and the answer is, well, if you get that chair, everybody's going to want that chair, so we're going to say no. That's not okay. That's not an undue hardship. They're allowed to say to other employees, yeah, we did get Lauren that chair. We're not getting one for anybody else right now. And some companies will say like, oh, everybody's going to get jealous and then they're going to want what you have. First of all, that rarely happens. And secondly, a company is allowed to make an accommodation for just one person. That's okay. Now, as your requests may get more serious or disruptive or more difficult to accommodate, there may be resistance and there may be less ability to make those accommodations. So, for example, if you have an employee who needs to come in 1 hour later than anybody else because they have something, sleep apnea, something, can you accommodate that? Probably. If you're in a customer-facing job where the first hour of your day is the busiest by 10 times the rest of the day, you might not be able to. If you need a special monitor, if you need an exception from travel, all of those things, all things are going to be factored into that by your company. Your best bet is to talk about that stuff during the offer, during the job offer. Now, a lot of you are already in jobs, and so you may decide after this conversation to go and ask for some things. You may decide to go in and act a little bit differently, be a little bit more yourself, be a little weirder, because weird is kind of actually normal. But you really owe it to yourself to get what you need. You spend so much time and so much energy at work. You spend so much time and so much energy in meetings and at your desk and at your computer, that if you are not given the opportunity to function at your best, you're not going to thrive. And you can ask during the interview process, how do you accommodate people who have different needs? You can ask during the interview process, what are the travel requirements? And you can say, I have some challenges with travel. And if it's an essential function of the job, if travel is an essential function of the job, you may not get the job, you may not take the job. You have to look out for yourself, though, right? You have to be willing to be the weird one, right? And some of that shows up in funny ways, right? Like maybe this is weird about me. I remember sitting in meetings, and I say I remember like it was 30 years ago. It was last year. But I remember being in meetings, in group meetings at my last corporate job, where like I just was bored, right? And my weird was not an accommodation that I needed. I just was bored. And so I would make stuff up. I would, draw an outline of the person sitting across from me with my eyes. I would imagine what it would be like if I walked over to that person and flicked them in the ear. I wouldn't. I'm not violent. And, an ear flick's not really violence. I would make up the stories of, what if I just started singing? Would people start singing with me? Would they kick me out? I don't know. But my weird is like keeping my brain busy when I'm bored. Catherine says, I've negotiated car allowance, school tuition repayment, corporate housing for the first 2 months, flexible schedule for 10-hour days because I needed a day off from my son's doctor's appointment. Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff you can negotiate. None of that sounds weird to me. I've heard things about people who have an ex who has stalked them. I've had people come in and tell me about garnishments, wage garnishments for various things, jail sentences, theft at a previous company that they were either peripherally involved in, directly involved in, reported to a hotline. I heard about theft a lot. My goal always was to make people feel comfortable telling me stuff. And if you're a person, if you're watching and you're a person who's told me one of those things, I'm not talking about you. I haven't said a single thing tonight that I haven't heard more than once. And I would never get specific enough to identify anybody. I'm using these examples because I think it's so important to be your whole self when you go places. I think it's so important to tell people and show people who you are. I spent a lot of years being work Lauren and regular Lauren. Work Lauren never would have made the face that was on the advertisement for my live tonight. Home Lauren would have, because my friends know I can make that face, and people are like pretty jealous of the ability I have to cross my eyes all the way in. But as I grew and as I developed, and especially after my accident, if you don't know about my accident, I had a situation where I broke both of my shoulders, was out of work for several months. And when I came back from that, well, during that, I wrote a blog about it with one thumb at a time because I couldn't move my shoulders. Did that on my phone. But when I came back from that, my colleagues had read my blog and I didn't filter anything and I didn't censor anything. And I got all kinds of weird in that blog. And I said all the things that nobody says out loud about being humbled and about not being able to go to the bathroom by myself or feed myself, because when your shoulders don't work, this is as much movement as your arms make. And when I came back to work after that accident, everybody liked me more because I was more me, because like I let the weird out. And I think that especially when you're in HR and you're willing to let the weird out, that other people are willing to talk to you more, are willing to relate to you more. And I've almost never been in a situation where somebody said something that they thought was weird about themselves and at least one other person in the room, didn't agree. So if you're at work, if you're going into your day-to-day job and you're hiding a thing, you're hiding an accommodation you need, you really want to have one of those sunlights for seasonal affective disorder at your desk, but you feel weird about it. If you take yours out, if you bring out your weird, your thing that you think makes you weird, somebody else is going to be like, oh, I'm going to bring mine in too. I didn't think we were allowed. I didn't think it would be okay. I thought it would be weird. Got a couple of more comments here. Linda is saying negotiations was a skill I lacked getting my job, but now going in, I plan to negotiate everything possible, including nap time to reset my brain. Sure. Yeah. Negotiate whatever you can during a job offer. The market is such now that you can ask for things. And this is a little bit off topic, negotiating a job, but when you go to negotiate a job, there's almost nothing that you're going to ask for that the recruiter or hiring manager is going to say like, oh, job offer rescinded. You can ask for stuff. I mean, don't ask for, excuse me. Don't ask for a private jet. Like yet, wait a couple months. But if you're asking for, can I get a guaranteed hour break in the middle of the day? Or I have a bad back, can I ask for a standing desk accommodation? You may not get a standing desk, but you might get a desk stand that you can, use. It's worth asking. It's worth deciding what you want as you move into your job. Catherine says, excuse me. Catherine says, I got a job to set up a meditation room for resetting my sensory processing challenges. Amazing. Yeah. At one of the companies I worked for, we had a massage room, and we had a massage therapist come in a couple of times a week, which was like so luxurious and really like brought my shoulders down and made my neck move again. And we also had a wellness room where anybody could go. We had a refrigerator in there so that lactating mothers could nurse and store milk. But more importantly, or as importantly, it was a place where, like, if you had a migraine, you could go and sit in the dark for a little while. If you wanted to take a nap during lunch, you could go and do that. If you needed to go cry, and I hate workplaces where you have to go cry, but not always about work. Sometimes you just need to cry. It wasn't a crying closet. That's not what it was. It wasn't that kind of workplace. But, it was the kind of place where you could just go and be quiet and get some quiet time. We asked people not to work in there because we didn't want it to turn into like a roving office or hotel office. But it was a place to get a break. It was also a company where we accommodated standing desks when they were needed. We accommodated differing hours when they were needed. And so go ahead and be weird, like me. Take your time thinking about your conditions of satisfaction for a new job or for your current job. As things are changing, companies are becoming more interested in retention. So they're going to start, if they haven't already, if your company is a decent place and they want to retain their employees, they are going to start accommodating things they haven't accommodated in the past. So think about what you need. Is it a headset because you're on the phone all day and you're tired of going like this? Is it a different chair? Is it a footrest? Is it time for a nap? Is it sensory blockers of some sort, noise canceling headphones? The worst that can happen is that they will say no. The next worst that can happen is that they will make a judgment about you, and that thing that you've asked for will come up as a reason why their attitude has changed towards you. That's not what I want for you. And that's not the intention of this conversation. What I really want for you is to be as weird as you are wherever you go and be really proud of who you are. I am, and I wasn't always, but you deserve to be you wherever you go and not to have to compartmentalize work Lauren with home Lauren and remember which person you are at each place. So go be weird, go be amazing, and reach out to me for help if you have any questions or you want to talk about your own situation. Have a great night, everybody.